If you're creative and you feel like you're failing, this video is for you. For the entirety of February, I was pretty unsure whether or not I was going to be able to keep this space, and that's because I've been struggling. So this video is a short insight into my 28-day journey of me trying to figure out whether or not I could make enough rent for me to regain my confidence and direction. So I'll say this for those in the back, and if you are a creative and you feel like you're failing, this video is for you. And I'm gonna pack away this set. But yeah, man, I can't believe that 28 days has gone that quickly. It's just gone super fast. And I'm here. I was in a place where I was ready to just say, fuck it. I didn't want to give up this place. I didn't want to do any of that. I was in a mindset of saying, this ain't working. I don't know what to do. And I think the only thing that I've got left is to literally give it up and walk away. So I decided to say, all right, cool then. Well, we're gonna give it these last 28 days and we're gonna give it a go. We're gonna see what we can do. 28 days, I said, I'm gonna come to this studio space and I'm gonna practice consistency by being here, even if nothing's going on, with the idea of being intentional with my time, intentional with my energy, and intentional with trying to receive a particular outcome. That outcome was to make enough money to cover the rent. Shit. So now that I've packed away the studio and I've cleaned the set and all of that, yeah, I'm gonna sit down with my little black book and we're gonna go through the 4 weeks in February and looking at exactly what happened. The way in which that we're going to structure these weeks as well is that it's going to run from Saturday to Sunday. And that's because the first day of February was a Saturday. That was the day where I made the decision that I'm going to come to the studio every single day and make a video. And that happened off the back of me coincidentally having a studio booking. Now, up until that point, no real effort or energy was put into getting studio bookings. I wasn't trying to make content or I wasn't trying to push every day. I just had moments of doing it sporadically. So the idea of consistency and the execution of consistency for myself was at an all-time low, and it's never been a thing that I've actually been good at, because my relationship with consistency was more from a standpoint of creatively, is my work getting better? And I would say from a biased point of view that anytime I throw myself into a project, I am actually pushing myself to try and make it technically better. If that's from the storytelling aspect, if that's from the shot composition aspect, if that's from the technicalities of how I edit and use sound design, I'm always trying to push to make it as good as I possibly can. And while that is an element of consistency, that isn't the consistency that most people talk about, especially when it comes to the development and growth of you as a person or a business. So with that realization, that's where I said, all right, safe. We're gonna be consistent with our actions and consistent with our time. And because I'd reached the end and I had nothing left, I just said, at the very least, what I can do is come to the studio every single day to share my vulnerabilities. So I thought, well, let me leverage that and lean into that by just making a video. I have a studio space, I have a tripod, I have a camera. It's not hard for me to do that. So that was the first decision that I made on a Saturday. The second decision was, even if nothing's going on, I'm going to be in here and I'm going to do some form of work, whether that work be freelance work or it being intentional work that I am doing in order to get more eyeballs around this space being available. So I did a studio booking on a Saturday. I went home, I wrote a newsletter, and then that's where it started. The clock is ticking. I got 5 minutes. 5 minutes to talk to you lots. But anyway, week one started off with that studio booking on the Saturday. On the Sunday, I came in here and I cleaned out the back room. This is the little box room. Yeah, it's full of boxes. That back room was being used as essentially a storage unit for trainers to create content for All Right No Hype. It also had just empty boxes and junk. I cleared out the whole room, and then I had a functioning, dedicated workspace to work from. And I think that small incremental change is what made the biggest difference in these last 28 days, because it gave me a sense of routine. Coming to this studio every day, opening up the office door, turning on the heater and doing something. But it just set the tone, pun intended, it set the tone for the rest of the days to follow. What happened is something that I cannot explain. I came here on a Monday and I started editing content and just being intentional with my thoughts. But from that Monday to the Friday, I started receiving bookings for this studio, and I ain't got a Scooby-Doo where those bookings were coming from. Obviously, yes, they were coming through TagView and Peerspace, but I had been on there months before that and not receiving anything. As coincidentally, the start of February, I had a booking, but because it was just isolated to the one booking, it's like whatever, because sporadically I can get a booking here, I can get a booking there, it means nothing. But on that Monday, I started receiving bookings. From Monday to Friday, every day I'm getting some sort of email or notification from TagView, Peerspace, or DMs of people asking about the studio. And I'm thinking, what the hell is going on? To be honest, I felt like it was something bigger. I felt like it was God. And I just followed pursuit. The inquiries came in, I would respond to them in a timely fashion, and I was locking in bookings. That following Saturday was the first day in the history of me having this space that I was booked from morning till night. And I'm just like, yo, this don't make no sense. And I said, all right, safe. I'm not gonna let these bookings or the activity in the studio go to waste. I made sure that I made testimonials with everybody that came in here. The following Sunday, I had 2 bookings that day. One was from a production company in London. But yeah, that happened that weekend, and couldn't believe or put my finger on why or how, where all of this stuff was coming from. But I embraced it and I made the most of it. That really changed my perspective. That really put me in a positive mind state to where the rest of my energy was directed in the month of February. Of the second week, on that Friday, and I got a last minute booking with some guys, and they ended up shooting a campaign in here for No Two Ways, which is a trainer brand from London. And I wouldn't say that booking was more significant than the others, but it was a booking that the guys wanted to utilize the studio, because this is a big industrial space and this is a blank canvas. It's essentially here to build out sets. So when the guys came here to do the campaign, they've asked about, oh, can we use the carpet? Oh, can we use the backdrop? And then they've built out their little set. They utilized the red chairs that I got made. And I'm like, oh, yo, this is sick. Like, these guys get it. And they said to me, like, we want to work with you, you know. We've been to loads of studio spaces and we feel like we've got everything we can get from them. But in here, on the basis that it's industrial and on the basis that we've got access to materials, we can see the vision of how we can work with you, and we can see the vision of what you're trying to do. So with all that being said, yeah, that brings us to week 3. And in week 3, nothing really happened. It was half term. I gave a lot of time to my son. I didn't fight with the idea that, yo, I need to get this done, I need to get that done. Nah, I was just really relaxed. Normally I'm fighting against time, but for some reason, this time it just felt seamless, and that fight wasn't there, even though there's more pressure on me now in terms of finances being at a low than there ever has been. But I was just really relaxed, and I want to move like that moving forward, because one of the things that I'd done was, during that half-term period, I also utilized the space. I said to my son, you come here, bring your friends, and you lot can do some spray painting. And we turned that into a day of, like, not so much shooting content, but just more of a day of, like, bonding with him and his friends and just doing stuff, but utilizing the space. That was sick, that was dope. On that Friday, which essentially is like the last day of the week, as I said, because we're working from Saturday to Sunday, I did a press shoot with Luca and Daz. And yeah, man, that essentially brings us to week 4. And week 4 was probably the shittest week because nothing happened. No real inquiries, no real bookings happened. But that's when I had the biggest epiphany. And that was raw. The fact that I have made the money to take care of the rent, and I've had a sick month, especially on the fact that at the beginning of the month I just felt so low, and now at the end of the month I've had more activity than I've ever had. I've made money from the studio. I've made more than just taking care of the rent. I've realized I'm gonna have to do this shit all over again. No systems have been put in place. I'm gonna have to grind just as hard. And that's when I realized I've constantly been in survival mode, living month to month. And if I stay in that mode, there's gonna be no growth, because survival mode isn't a growth mindset. It just creates stress, anxiety, and pressure. And having those 3 things on your head, it really affects your ability to be efficient. And when I realized that, I was like, okay, this is what needs to change. None of that would have been made as clear as day to me if I hadn't sat down for the last 28 days and spoke directly to the camera and analyzing how each day has gone on. And yeah, and that brings us to the end of how these last 28 days have really gone. And the biggest things that I've taken away, as I've written them down here: regaining my self-confidence. That's a massive win for me, because if you ain't got the self-confidence, or should I say, if I don't have no self-confidence, I'm not going to be able to move forward. Secondly, proving that the studio has a demand and it can work. And yeah, the things that I learned the most is this: momentum isn't enough. I need systems. So it don't matter how busy the studio is, it don't matter what happens in that month. If systems and processes ain't put in place to make the next 3 months easier, then it don't matter. The biggest eye-opener is that I've been operating in survival mode, and survival mode is no mode for a creative to be in, because it's just going to hinder the creative process and your creativity. But yeah, man, that's it. That's it. I'm ready to go. These videos ain't going to stop. We're going to keep going. And I'll see you that tomorrow. Look, gotta do this quick. I got 5% on the camera battery and probably like 1% left on the mic. But yeah, that was the 28 days. And the reason to why I said these videos ain't gonna stop is because in that 28-day process, I created a series called 28 in 5. And that's where I turned up to the studio, sat down in front of the camera and recorded a video for 5 minutes. And if you go on the YouTube now, you will see that these videos have continued and they ain't gonna stop. But this video is obviously slightly different in the sense of, it was more of a detailed video. My first ever attempt at making a YouTube style video, and these ain't gonna stop neither. We're now in March, still got the studio, but guess what? I'm still in the same space and I'm still in the same place. And I gotta figure it out. So subscribe, comment, like, and just stay locked into the journey, because this space might not be here, man. But I'm a creative. I love this shit, and I'm gonna keep pushing it.